I'm Nile Stample with Nole'n with Nile.
And I'm Taylor with Norvell Central.
Let's talk training camp. All right. So I had the pleasure of going out to training camp today to kind of take a look and see what was going on as a former player. I'm happy I have that privilege to be able to kind of get that sideline look and see what's going on with our team. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of amazing things happening in Tallahassee and today in Jacksonville at the UNF, but then we had it at the Jags facility. So that was super cool. But today I saw a lot of tempo. Tempo was great. I saw a lot of players that were really taking it seriously. Norvell talked about it after practice as well, that we really took this practice seriously. You could tell by when the players were coming into the locker room. And it's cool because you have this transition from being in the comfort of Doak Campbell and being in the comfort of the own practice facility, coming over to Jacksonville. You kind of take them out of that and mix things up. So you never know how they're going to react, but it seemed like Norvell was happy with them. I paid a lot of attention to the defensive line. It seems like that's a little bit more, I wouldn't say a concern, but my area of expertise and what I love the most. And this year in particular, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how some guys unfold and start to really become impact players. So I paid a lot of attention to that. I saw a lot of really, really cool things. It was really interesting to watch just because these guys are kind of fighting for that spot. You got Daryl Jackson. We have our starting line, but that third and that fourth look like we have some players that are in those roles now, which we'll talk about. But these players are really fighting to make sure that they're that guy and they're able to really support, and we're not having a drop off as we have some depth rotate in. What have been your thoughts so far on training camp and what you've seen and heard and what's going on?
Yeah, and a lot of times Norvell talked about before the offense being really, really sloppy. So a lot of times that comes with nature. Of course, the defense is going to be ahead of the offense a lot of times early in fall camp. And with the offense having so many new pieces like DJ and Roy Dale and Malik Benson and Jaylen Brown, the list goes on, especially at that offensive position. And the defense is more experienced. Even though they have a couple more newcomers, they have guys like Azaria Thomas and Ventrell Cypress and stuff, and people like that, really. Even DJ Lundy, who's a veteran linebacker that they have back in the group. Even when you got some of the transfers out there, you have a guy that's like a Cam Riley, for example. Norvell's been raving about him all fall camp at this point. And I think when you kind of look at it, as you've kind of talked about before, them getting a little bit more comfortable, the tempo is getting a little bit better. I think that's really an encouraging sign. But as you talked about before, they are in Jacksonville right now. How do you think that process with them going to Jacksonville is going to prepare them for games like SMU and, even a Miami later on down the year? Do you think that experience is really going to help them kind of take their game to the next level this season?
Yeah, I think so. I think it helps with and what you don't realize that there's so many people that are orchestrating this, that it's like, especially new people that are there that haven't traveled with the team last year. So we're able to kind of see what it looks like to travel, what our schedule looks like, and making sure that we're on our P's and our Q's, and players have the right expectations. You have freshmen that have never played at Florida State before. They're now able to travel and get on the buses and be in a new atmosphere and sleep and wake up and work out and do all those things. So I think it's a great opportunity to be able to train the mind to be ready for that during the season. And I think it's huge. I'm happy that we do it. We never did it when I was there. And never, I guess, I don't know if Jimbo didn't want to or what, but we just never did that. But I think it's a great element to add. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm itching to talk about this defensive line. I'm itching. So there was a few things I saw. One, our starting four, which is going to be Marvin Jones Jr. Then you're going to have Joshua Farmer, Daryl Jackson, and then Patrick Payton, are all obviously high caliber, all American, all ACC guys. They're all very, very well suited in order to be one of the best defensive lines in the country. I think I saw a lot of really good things when it comes to pad level, getting off, leadership, and some of those things that like you have to kind of just watch and be as a younger guy, watch and just replicate. So I love that. But then so everyone knows that these players are good. These players are top notch. There's a few things that some of them need to work on, but overall these are dominant players that are going to play huge factors in us having a successful year. So when it comes to like the depth and how we're going to rotate some guys in, you have Daryl, you have Daniel Lyons, who's going to be, I think, potentially a top guy for us at some point here in the future, and he's showing that right now. I think he's kind of like, I'm not sure if you guys remember. So we have DeMonte McAllister, who was a very good player for us when we won the national championship the year prior as well, and he kind of reminds me of him. He's kind of not necessarily a heavy set guy, somewhat a little bit slender, tall, can pass rush, can really be disruptive in the backfield, but also can hold his own. And when it comes into the run game, and then you have someone like KJ Sampson, who is who's a bigger guy, can hold his point, still really quick feet. I think he's going to be a good guy for us. I think he's going to rotate in as well. And then you have Tomo Adirajaya, which I saw a ton of. I think he is going to be a big factor for us this season as well in terms of rotation, in terms of being able to have good quality guys on the field and be able to move around. He's someone that we can kind of have on a pass rush package and be able to also move in and help and truly help in the run. Not necessarily just be someone that's hold on tight. I think he could be an asset in the run game based on what I saw today.
I do have a question for you too, because I know Adam Fuller talked about in the media session. You know, he talked about having 6 defensive tackles potentially in that rotation, as you alluded to a little bit before. You know, with having some of the problems last year you saw with like Verse and Peyton. You know, those were your 2 bona fide defensive ends last year. But fans were kind of criticizing some of the efforts because of, you know, there'd be times where Gilbert Edmond and Byron Turner would be out there at the field at the same time in some of those critical moments, you know, 3rd downs, 4th downs, whatever the case may be. They had good intentions in terms of keeping them healthy and keeping them safe throughout the season because you knew Florida State had a chance at the end to be successful and potentially get where they wanted to go. Do you think that's still going to be something they kind of factor on this season? Or do you think it's going to be more so, considering they might have a little more closer games this year in terms of their schedule, do you think there might be an opportunity where you see more along the lines of, okay, Patrick Payton's going to be out here and maybe you might switch him out with another defensive end, or Marvin Jones Jr. is going to be out here and you're going to switch him out with another guy, but just always having that consistent starter in there at all times?
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the goal, right? That's always the goal, is in order to do that. I think at least for what their scheme is this year, from what it's looked like during rotations, it looks like they were doing that. Daniel Lyons started one of the segments for the ones along with Joshua Farmer. So it seems like they're trying to swap and trying to make sure that some of these guys are playing and being able to come in with a little bit of a better caliber on the other side, or at least a more seasoned caliber, I'd like to say. So it seems like that's probably going to be the case. You would hope so, but as you're driving and as you're going, these coaches can only do so much when it comes to paying attention to that. Also, you have long drives, you have turnovers, you have all these other factors that are going in here. So at some point, there's going to be a defensive line out there that we may not want in terms of systematically, but these coaches do whatever they can. Just like Coach Odell sometimes would throw me in and say, hey, okay, Timmy, come out. And Timmy's like, listen, I got to come back in. And so we're always trying to work with each other on top of the defensive coordinators and the defensive line coaches. Us as players are trying to work together as well to make sure that we can help each other out when it comes to that.
I will ask,
you know what I mean?
Because I know James Coleman, former Florida State player, he actually put on Twitter talking about, man, the defensive backs are quite scary this year in terms of like just their talent level, what they bring to the table. Patrick Surtain is doing a great job in terms of forcing turnovers, being that great developer that he is, as well as on the recruiting trail as well. How do you kind of think that the defensive backs this year are going to kind of correlate to what it is to making a successful defensive line and possibly even linebacker core? Because you look at some of the pieces we lost last year with Jerry and Jones, who was at practice today, as well as, you know, Renardo Green and Akeem Dent. Those are some big pieces that Florida State missed in the defensive backfield. If you're still saying the defensive backfield is scary, that's quite frightening. So
I think it is. Obviously you have your Shaheems, you have your core guys, you have your, obviously I'm not sure if Conrad Hussey is going to be that guy. I think he's going to be a massive factor for us either way. But the fact that we're having to even think about that shows the caliber of guys that we have. You have the Isaiahs, and so as we're looking at the defensive backs, I think we're still very discipline. We have a lot of I would say a lot of mature guys still within some of these realms or within some of these kind of spread out across the field, which are going to hold each other accountable. So obviously it's going to play a huge factor when it comes to that D-line, because if the secondary can give us an extra second, that's a sack. If they give us an extra second, or they're able to make the quarterback question whether they're actually open or not, because our guys are staying where they're trusting their eyes or staying where they're supposed to be, it's going to give the defensive line an extra second. So it's going to play a huge factor for how we're developing. But not only did I see the few that I mentioned in terms of the Daniel Lyons and the KJs and these other players and the Tomawais, we have some of these young guys that are coming in that are really good. And I think it's going to be great going into, obviously we our defensive line, our class coming in from recruiting this past year is going to make it even better. Talking to Odell, he is super excited about some of these boys that are coming in here, and I think it's going to be a awesome ripple effect going into next season. But some of these players may come in, you never know. Like you just really never know what we're going to have. But I'm a little bit more confident going into the regular season after coming to today's practice and talking with some of the guys and seeing them and really watching them play. Like these kids can play. They truly can. So I think we're going to be fine in that aspect, and we'll kind of go into it a little bit more and what we saw. But yeah, man, on the offensive side, what are your, I want to know what your thoughts are as like an overall when it comes to our offense going into this first game.
You know, it is hard to replace Jordan Travis. Obviously, he meant a lot to Florida State. I mean, he was a generational talent that he kept getting better and better after year. You know, of course, Kenny Dillingham, former offense coordinator here, had a lot of confidence in him, built a lot of confidence in him and rapport. Also, Norvell had the same thing. A lot of coaches would have gave up on Jordan Travis, but you know what? They saw the process. They were able to develop him at a high level. You know, of course, he had Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson in his last year, and that's another topic for another day with some of the wide receivers we got bringing in and everything. Not to say this offense is terrible, but at the same time, they're going to have to run the ball efficiently. And I think that's what they did this offseason, and bringing in a guy like TJ Ferguson, Richie Leonard. I mean, you got guys like Darius Washington, Maurice Smith, you know, Robert Scott, Jeremiah Byers. I mean, the list goes on and on. Those offensive linemen are absolutely massive. And Florida State, especially if they want to keep their defense fresh and being able to go through that the whole season, you got to be able to establish the run game. So I think that's going to be kind of a bigger factor in what Florida State's going to bring to the table. I know everybody's going to have that conversation of, hey, who's going to be the number 2 wide receiver next to Malik Benson? But if you're able to set up that run game and give DJ an easier throwing lanes and give him some easier opportunities to have that play action pass, I think anything's possible in this offense. So not necessarily saying the offense is going to be top 10, top 15, but if you can get it to a top 50 level, top 40 level, I think it can definitely be manageable, because I think this defense is a top 20 defense if they're all healthy. So
I agree.
Kind of excited though too, because they've kind of brought up Sam Singleton's name quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Everything, and like, you didn't really think he was going to be much of a factor this year, because they brought in a guy like Roydell Williams. They brought Jalen Lucas in. You know, they have guys like Keziah Holmes and, you know, LT, of course, ACC championship, all, you know, MVP right there. And then you're bringing in those 2 stud freshmen, you know, Mekhi Danzy and also Cam Davis as well. So the backfield is loaded. But you have to realize, too, you know, Roydell Williams, Jalen Lucas, you know, and also Keziah Holmes, they're all seniors. So Sam Singleton is going to get his opportunity at some point. Is he going to get it this year? Who knows? But it's a good process and actually a step in the right direction that he's actually developing and getting that experience that he actually needs. And who knows? I mean, he could get 5, 6, 7 carries a game. Who knows? I mean, as David Johnson talks about all the time, we're all one fries at the end of the day. We all want to have that opportunity and ability. And if he helps the team win, so be it.
Exactly. 1,000%. I thought he looked really poised today. And especially when you see some of the younger guys, you're not really expecting seeing them as poised. But I thought him as well as Cam Davis were very poised, especially as being some of the younger guys. So I love watching what it looks like, what our offensive scheme looks like. I'm looking forward to DJ continuing to build on his progressions and knowing and having that confidence to throw it where he needs to throw it, when he needs to throw it, which obviously all 3 of those are so big factors on being able to be an effective quarterback. So I'm looking for him to continue to build on that, but we definitely have some weapons. I think more weapons than people really realize at that wide receiver. You have Malik, obviously, which is an absolute blazer, but then we also have some really, really good wide receivers that are going to be there in order to be supporting roles as well as absolute dogs. So I think it's going to be an awesome opportunity for DJ to be able to use some of these guys as well as some of these running backs, like I said. And then last but not least, when it comes to our offensive line and our guys, I think our offensive line looks amazing. I think our defensive liners are always going to continue to push that envelope, right? We're gonna dog them, right? Especially when it comes to that inside run, we getting in there, which was cool to watch. I love watching my boys get after it. But our offensive line is probably one of the better offensive lines that we've had in a while. I think I was able to see players play their technique and be comfortable in it, which is not what you're going to see all the time, especially when it comes to offensive line. It's such a technique sound position. And I saw a lot of that today, and I'm looking forward to seeing it more tomorrow. Like I said, I'm going to be looking at more offense. We'll be back with more FSU talk. What else you got, Norvell?
Yeah, I got one more thing. Special teams, huge factor in terms of Norvell, what he brings to the table. Even in his introduction press conference when he first got hired at Florida State, he talked about special teams as the foundation of a program. You always never really think about it. It's a small aspect of the game. A lot of fans were clamoring about Ryan Fitzgerald struggling throughout his career at Florida State, but he really caught it on last year. Type of that Grozo Award winner type of semifinalist that he came in last year. It's a preseason watch list at this point. We all know about Mastromanno. Very, very good punter as well. Can flip the field at any time he wants to. You got a guy like Jalen Lucas, big kickoff returner. Biggest thing I think a lot of people are factoring into now is who's going to kind of handle those punt return duties. And I think when you kind of look at Florida State special teams in general, if you're able to flip the field consistently time and time again, especially on Mastromanno's punts, I definitely think it's kind of an underrated aspect of what this Florida State team brings. Not only because it creates the offense a little more opportunities to kind of give them the edge up, but it also gives that defense a little bit more time when they're having to pin their ears back at this point because, you might be on the 8-yard line, 7-yard line. You're able to do that. So I think it's a huge factor. What are kind of your thoughts so far on kind of the special teams aspect and kind of that unforgotten piece that people tend to forget about?
Yeah, Joe, watching it today, he takes it obviously very, very seriously, which a lot of coaches do just because it's such a pivotal part. But I thought everything today looked clean. Everything today looked very polished. And that's probably one of the better parts of practice. I thought this didn't seem like there was any real issues when it came to special teams, and everybody was just kind of in the right spots and doing the right things. Obviously, we're not live, so you could only get so much of a look when it comes to practice and special teams. But we have some serious weapons when it comes to being able to take it back, as well as some guys that could really run and come and cover in order for us to be able to pin them on wherever we can in order for our defense to keep them pinned, because it's a field position game. And if we can win the battle of field position, we're more than likely going to win the game. So I think Norvell is putting his foot where it needs to be when it comes to that special teams. And hopefully we continue to do that and build on that throughout training camp. So that way we have no mishaps or no issues coming into the regular season.
Yeah, and just like every other fan that's watching this today, super excited to see your updates as Thursday's practice kind of goes through in Jacksonville as well. Also, be sure to follow his Instagram account. I know he's trying to get up to 1,000 followers at this point, trying to get bigger and better. Former player trying to get out insightful content, and I really think it's super special to kind of see a former player give his insight on the defensive line and other aspects of the game as well. So super excited to hear that kind of update, though, for sure.
Yeah, man, listen, I can't wait for this upcoming season. I think it's going to be a special one. And we'll be back with some more updates and we'll be talking about more things.